Welcome to Comics League Indie Wednesdays. So, in light of this, for those of you that don't know, I've started Indie Wednesdays, meaning every Wednesday we're going to talk about a non-Marvel and non-DC comic book. And to start it off, I talked about Cyberfrog last week, so I figured what's another good, really good indie book. So this one comes from Image, and it's called Nocterra. It's volume 1, Full Throttle Dark. It's by Scott Snyder, art by ToniyDaniel. And you guys will know from when we discussed Superman and Wonder Woman, I love me some ToniyDaniel art and some Scott Snyder writing. So this is in for a big treat. So the central premise of this story, at least from what I got reading it, was, are you afraid of the dark? Because it gets really cool. All right, so the story starts off. We have a narration by the main character, Val Riggs. She'll become important later. She's at her middle school. It's like 10 years in the past from when this book takes place. All of a sudden, the sun goes out, like completely goes out, and it's all dark. And then all of a sudden, it cuts to the present day. And at about 1 a.m., she's what's called a ferryman, which basically what that is, she transports people throughout the darkness. And she has a truck that's lit up with neon. I'll put that up to the camera right there. And she's transporting these people out. And she comes under attack by shaded birds. And so what the darkness ends up doing, I have to explain this to explain what these bird creatures come from, is that the darkness rewrites an organism's DNA. So obviously you have all these creatures that are outside in the darkness. They're gonna like be changed. And that's also why her suit is like specially made so she can survive in the darkness, and her truck is like filled with neon lights. Is to protect people. Then one of the passengers panics and opens the door, to which she is killed by a shade. Val goes up and like blasts these creatures off her truck with dual pistols. She knocks the shade off, and then she falls off the truck. But before anything could happen, she reaches her destination, which is this wall-like structure that's apparently like a sanctuary for mankind. And it's like lit up with all the neon lights. So what they established here is that one of the ways they can tell if you're infected is they check your gums. And if you have black on the gums, then you're going to be churned. So then also she reports back to her like supervisor, who gives her a battery. And then she's approached by these two, by this, I think it's, grandpa and his granddaughter. And they basically say, hey, we want to hire you to transport us to this location. It's very important that we get there. And then what he says is the location there will be a cure. At first, Val doesn't believe him because she's like, well, the cure is not real. If this thing were curable, it would be cured already. So she goes back to her place with her brother Emery, who is actually infected, and she hasn't told anyone yet. She's trying to find a way to cure him. So what she does is that she routinely like mixes his blood. You know that those machines that like to take your blood out, repurify it, and then put it back into you. It's essentially that. Then she decides, I really have no choice, so I might as well transport this family. He'll pay well, then there could be a cure. So then she hops in the truck and heads off. At the same time, there's this man all in black, like literally all in black, shows up and goes, okay, I want to know where Val Riggs went. She's got the dude she's transporting is responsible for the entire apocalypse. So why don't you help me find them? So the gang, the other drivers tell Shade. I'm going to call him Shade, where Val is going. So then we get a flashback to all the to 10 years prior. All the adults are in the street light praying with the candlelight. Now remember, they haven't been turned yet, but this is around where they discover that humans can be turned into shades. And then we talk about how it's a typical brother sister like bonding, and then be like, I'll always be there for you and that such. And they're collecting batteries for flashlights. But anything that can light, they're getting it. And then it cuts back to modern day, and Val's truck is under attack by more shades, which I love the character design for the shades. It look really cool. And they move out. Then they stop off at this way station. You know how like you have these rest stops on the highway? This is essentially what it is, because all the vehicles run on battery power, so the truck has to charge. So what she does is she parks at this area that has lots of neon lights, and she can charge the batteries. And the neon lights protect the people from A, the darkness, and B, the shades, because the shades won't go anywhere that's lit. So then the grandpa tells Val about how he caused the apocalypse. They created a machine that I'm going to read from the book. This machine, it was supposed to capture particles from the first Terra, Lux, the brightest, the one at the base of everything, and observe them billions of times, thereby making them material and opening a door to Lux Terra, a plane of heavenly light. But our machine must have found the wrong particle. I opened the wrong doorway. So Bailey and I we're going to fix it and save everyone. Okay, so basically what happens is that he was trying to create a portal to basically this heavenly like realm, until he opened the wrong door and opened eternal darkness. So then let's see what else. So then again, we see Emery's turning. His arm has been like turned, and then Val's a friend tells her about the shade guy coming after them, and says he's coming after him. And then the shade shows up with his other shadelings. Yes, I'm calling them that, in this dope Batmobile. Yes, I'm calling it that because it looks just like the Batmobile. And then you have this epic high-speed chase, but what Val does is she drops one of the neon signs and then blows it up. Next, we get an idea of what this thing does to people. So essentially, a scientist says, I can tell you it's not an infection, it's not even a mutation, it's a complete metamorphosis. This darkness, it changes the genetic code in all living creatures, but in humans, the changes are far more drastic than in any other species. It's almost like the dark does something special to us. And then the dude goes, I'm saying that what we've seen is the first week. It's just the beginning. So essentially, the darkness changes humans specifically. The brain itself has changed. So, and also at this point, the brain itself has changed. So now we get the parents knocking on the door, and it's established that the parents are now completely infected and taken over. Cut back to modern day. They're in the middle of the high-speed chase. Oh yeah, and then here's where she drops the sign. And at first, Shade thinks, we'll be able to get through this, and then boom. Actually, I think he takes out he still drives through, and then Val deploys these spike traps, and then Shade deploys this harpoon launcher to lock on to Val's truck and open the doors. And at the same time, the grandpa is harpooned and pulled into the truck. At the same and then Val shows up and saves the girl from being taken. Then the idea of Shade is to just strap him to the top of the car and have him transform. At this point, also, we have Emery starting to like succumb to the infection. That's how you can tell they're about to succumb, because they have these red eyes. I'm going to take off my hoodie. This is one of those books where it's a completely original IP, but here's why it's very like appealing for a new reader because first off, if you've read anything if you've read like Scott Snyder's Batman run, you're familiar with who Scott Snyder and ToniyDaniel is, so it's a little more easier for someone to like invest. So now issue 4, and this collects issues 1 through 6, so we're almost done. Issue 6, we have the parents banging on the door saying, come on, open the door. And then Emery kind of opens the door. At the same time, no, not the same time, in the future, in other words, now, Val and the granddaughter reach the wall. Well, so, actually, no, they reach like, they reached Tipton, which was this town that Val was trying to get batteries from to save her brother, but it was destroyed and overrun by shades. So again, they enter it to salvage some things, and then they're attacked by a shade. They open the door, and Emery's gone full shade. And then Val activates the light, and it's sort of this bright sunlight is sort of like reverses the process temporarily. Then at this point, now you have the grandfather on top of the truck and on top of Shade's car, and he's turned into a shade. So after charging up, they arrive at their destination, and they hear shades, and they engage in this epic firefight. And then they encounter the human shades, which are known as they retreat. Okay, it's just the point they retreat that'll come in later. Then they're saved by the grandfather's partner, who says, his brother, who essentially says, "Hey, I'm here to help you." They go inside, and they realize he's built this sort of utopia where they do have a cure for shadeness, I guess. Yes, that's the terminology. And then Emery goes full shade, attacks Val, and then she is like knocked out. At the same time, Emery is cured of shadeness. Val is cured, and then Tiberius, I think his name is Tiberius. Hang on, let me rewind a little bit. Real quick. Tiberius, who's the uncle and the brother of the grandpa. I'm just going to call him Tiberius. He starts to explain to her the entire process, what they did. They said that they were going to try and get like the light of God and stuff. And then here's what the human shades look like. They kind of look like Emperor Palpatine a little bit. And then this is about they're called smudges. And this is about the final stage, I guess, of the evolution. And then, Emery is completely cured. And they have this fight. And then and it turns out he let himself get infected, I guess, because it's the idea of this is how he survived. It's a war between darkness and light, ancient creation self coming to a head here on Earth. You want to stay, understand? So essentially, they decide that they want to stay. And it turns out Tiberius was feeding intel to Shade the entire time. Actually, I'm going to call him Dark Man because that seems like best. Then we cut back 10 years, and then we see the first Shade attack. The first time that they see human shades. And Val essentially is captured by Tiberius. And then essentially they escape, and then the human shades get out and then start killing everyone. They get outside, and then Tiberius is killed by Grandpa Shade. Actually, right there. It's really hard when this is mirrored. And then they escape, and then what's cool is that Val's friend, who is her, whose name is B, who's like her supervisor, her coordinator, who gets all these jobs, shows up at all the trucks, and they light up the human shades. And then that's the end of the storyline. So this was a very this is a story I very much expect Scott Snyder to write because if you never read his DC work, what he essentially does is he takes a lot of dark, like heavy metal concepts, hence metal and death metal, and like all the Dark Knights of Barbados and such. And what he does is he's good at really writing really good post-apocalyptic storylines. Hence metal, death metal, and then this. And going into this for the first time, I knew it was going to be a good storyline because I'm a big fan of Scott Snyder. I love his Batman stuff. I love his metal and death metal. I love those books so much. I also love his Justice League run. I have a couple of volumes of that. We'll probably cover that at some point on Under Two Capes. But anyway, once again, you guys know I love me some ToniyDaniel. In fact, I'm waiting for a Tony S. Daniel like art book because I will buy that. So I have he was the artist for like I believe 2 volumes of Superman, Wonder Woman, and then he did like a little bit of Brian Hitch's Justice League run from Rebirth. I'm not sure if he ever did Marvel work, but he's one of my favorite artists, particularly the way he draws women, and obviously the main character of this book being a woman, and really it just means more of Tony S. Daniel doing what he does best. We got some dope variant covers, but I think my favorite cover that I have here that's collected in this volume is the one for this one right here. Just that's so tough right there. But anyway, so once again, if you're a fan of post-apocalyptic science fiction, that's not superhero-y, but it's very much humanity on the brink, definitely pick up Nocterra, Volume 1, Full Throttle Dark, and then I'll move on to Volume 2. I will be moving on to Volume 2, so we'll see what happens with that. So anyway, that's the end of the first official actually it's not the first, but that's the end of our second Indie Wednesday. Hope you guys enjoyed this concept. This is intended to be a series where I basically expose you guys to like writers and artists, well, not doing projects that you won't find in like a Marvel or a DC, and really just bringing you guys more great stories, because after all, comics are filled with great stories, and that's the whole reason why I do this channel. So thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what other indie stories would you like me to cover. Once again, your wish is my command. We will be doing an episode coming up on a basic season review of Young Justice Outsiders, as requested by Tevya. And I guess that's where I'm going to leave it. Again, like, comment, subscribe, and share everything we do. And I will see you guys in the next ones. See you next Wednesday for Indie Wednesday. Bye-bye. Stay heroic.